Hello Multiverse, welcome to Omniverse Gamers. My name's Damian Bazzaio. This video is going to talk about how to use pro wrestling psychology and physical storytelling to help your combats be more dramatic. This is especially helpful when you're sending single monsters after a party because, you only have so many actions and this monster is going to get pummeled by your whole group, and it can get boring that way because it's called a slog. They just stay in a spot and people go around. But the way to prevent that, there's ways to prevent that with movement and stuff like that and terrain, as you see a lot of my videos. But there's another way to make drama that you don't really have to move to make drama, and it's basically using physical psychology and storytelling, and you use deeper actions. You go deeper into the actions that are happening and tell a story with the combat. I say pro wrestling because pro wrestling does this all the time. The idea in pro wrestling is two guys that want you to believe that they're trying to kill each other. They're doing this pageant. They're actually, in reality, they're two skilled people working together to hide their skills and fight and make you think that this one's trying to kill this one. Or like the big giant guy, there's no way this little guy that's half his size is ever going to beat this big guy. But the whole point of the match is for this little guy to attack certain ways or to do certain things to take down the big guy, take away the big guy's strengths, and make it believable. Make you believe that this little guy can beat the big guy. He may win or he may not. The big guy may win. But in a good wrestling match, you don't know who's going to win. Your mind, even though you know like The Rock's never going to lose, the guy he's facing, if he's good enough and The Rock acts good enough and sells it, you're like, oh my God, he's going to lose. This guy's going to lose. It's the same concept with monsters. This monster is this colossal thing your party's never going to defeat. How are they going to defeat this monster dragon or monster thing with tentacles? You make them believe they're not going to win when they're going to fight to the death and they're going to fight for everything they got. That alone, you can tell a story within that without this isn't talking about your story of your campaign and adding exposition into your combat. That's a whole different discussion that we've had. This is physical storytelling with combat. Now, another example, the best example I just posted is Rago the Rabid Bear. This bear was just a bear who had been controlled by an evil druid, and he was coming at the party. And I used physical storytelling by like grabbing the monk and picking him up and holding him in my mouth, and I let the party attack him in the brain, which caused him to. They're trying to get the druid out of his head, so he kept fighting them, and then I dragged the monk. I just took the damage, dragged the monk over to a cliff, and threw him off the cliff, rather than doing damage. So instead of doing damage, I created drama and fear. And they're like, oh my God, they're throwing him off the cliff. That's physical drama. That's me using psychology, the bear's physical actions, to create a dynamic story within the combat. I'm not creating stories outside the world. It's just that's the drama that we're creating in this story. So it's the same type of thing. Like let's take another example, like Mega Octopus Caverns, the same type of thing. They came in, they didn't really know what they were doing. They knew there was some kind of tentacled monster inside. Then the first time the monster came at them with the tentacles, they fought it, and they ended up cutting the two tentacles off. So there you go. There's physical storytelling. Now the creature escaped. He's wounded, he escaped. Now they have to go kill this thing. They jump into the water after him. He's, they're trying to explore and find him. He's now hurt, but now he knows they're coming for him, and he can sense them in the water. So he comes back and fights them again with two tentacles down. So the agency of them taking those two tentacles, that's the story that we're telling, that they are slowly piecing out this creature who's in its own habitat. They're weakening him as he goes. They're hitting him, they're taking tentacles off him. He's getting more angry, more desperate. The fight gets a little more crazy. They ended up damaging him. He casts his ink spray, which is part of his physical ability. Another, again, physical storytelling. I'm casting a thing that lets me get away. He goes away. It's kind of like a classic heel technique from pro wrestling. You're gonna it's called a shitbird technique. You're gonna do something to get away to get an advantage. So then the party uses that. So again, the agency of them, that wound that they gave him is bleeding. So they use that to track him, to track that monster. Which in reality, that's how it works when you're hunting. You shoot a deer with a bow or a gun. It bleeds. It runs away. You have to then track that blood to find your kill. So this is a natural thing that human psychology understands. As you're playing, they understand, we hit this thing, now we have to track its blood. They track it to its home world. Now this whole story is escalated because now they're in its home. He's now fighting for its life. He's desperate, and he's fighting with tactics that he didn't use before because now he's desperate. That's an example of physical storytelling and using psychology, wrestling. It's basic psychology, but it's pro wrestling psychology at its core, to tell a story that this big creature is getting taken down by these little creatures and the stories that they tell. That's just an example of how, and you can see this examples of this in pro wrestling all the time. Like Ultimate Warrior used to come out all the time and run, and he'd come in, run, and freak out, and he'd use this adrenaline rush like thing. He'd come out to the ring and just destroy everybody. And then he had this one match against Macho Man where he was just like, he came out calmly and methodically, which instantly fans knew, whoa, the Ultimate Warrior is afraid. Like, he's not afraid, but he's not coming out here to just wreck Macho Man. He respects the Macho Man. He understands the Macho Man is a dangerous threat to his run. And he instantly conveyed that just by walking out slowly. Instead of doing his normal thing and running out, he instantly just did that, walking out slowly. That's an example of using psychology, really good psychology, to get your crowd to be pulled in. Now, in D&D, your crowd is your party. You're trying to tell a story to your party and create dynamic things. You're trying to threaten them with death without actually killing them. You don't really want to TPK your party and start a whole game again. I mean, you can, and that does happen. But your goal as a DM, in my mind, is to threaten them with death, bring them to the brink of where, like, oh my god, how are we ever going to survive this? And then they're usually pretty fine. They're fine. You know what I mean? So that's where you create the suspension of disbelief with your physical actions and the way you run your monsters. This is, you can use your tactics, you can use your terrain, your action economy, all that stuff. But then there's storytelling on top of that. If you watch any wrestling match, that's the simplicity of wrestling, is that you can turn on any wrestling match of any company and not know either of the two guys. You can just if they're good wrestlers, they're going to come out from their entrance. They come out and say that when they get in the ring, all the mannerisms, all the way that they're pantomiming and interacting with each other, you will instantly know which one's good, which one's evil, or if they're both evil. The simplicity at the surface is what you're seeing, and there's all this complexity down below that's creating. The whole point of all this complexity is to create the simple illusion that it's this simple lineup here, this simple layer of just, evil versus good, storytelling, a fight. That's not really a fight. It's a pageant. It's a pageant between these two people who are making you believe this upper layer is simple. Same thing in encounter design. Obviously, D&D is this complex mathematical system with all these nuances going on, and then you have your storytelling on top of that, and your campaign, and all the things that the players can do on top of that. There's a lot of crazy, crazy things going on, complex things. But at the surface, you're just swinging your sword at a monster and telling a story. And that's what you want to see. You want your players to see the story up here. The story, the damage, the drama. You don't want them to see the numbers. Like, I hit you with a +5 sword and I add 6 to it. Okay, so you just took 11 damage. Next. Or, your sword comes in. Yeah, I know you dealt. You told me you dealt 11 damage. I know that. I'm the DM. I write that down, 11 damage. But then I'm going to describe it as your sword comes in and slices him in the belly right here, or slices him in the underarm. Or ask your players, where do you want to hit this character? Where do you want to hit this guy? In the leg, in the arm, and then you can use those things to decide your moves to make the next move dramatic. So say they keep attacking the bears. Say it's a bear. He's fighting on them with arms and a bite, and they say, where do you want to fight? Oh, we're going to take this arm. We're going to keep attacking this arm, trying to get this arm off this guy so he's weaker. Is there a mechanical way to do that in 5th edition? No, not really. But dramatically, storytelling-wise, you can do that yourself. So say they keep attacking the left arm. So say after round 3, and they had dealt so much damage, all of them are like, we're going to go after that left arm, we're going after that left arm. So now when I come in on my bear's turn, I'm going to do my right attack, perfectly fine, normal. I'll do my bite attack. And then when I do my left arm attack, I'll give myself a disadvantage or a minus a little bit. Not a lot, but just enough to make it so that they know that the damage they're doing to this arm is affecting the combat. Now, do you have to do that? No. If you're fighting with a lot of monsters, you probably don't want to do that because you got enough logistics going on. But if you have a single monster, this is how you do storytelling. Like, tentacled monsters are great. You give them 8 tentacles, let the players give them dynamics. If they dealt enough damage, they lose a tentacle. So they physically see the story of this creature weakening as you go. It's just a way to give agency and provide physical drama, physical storytelling of the battle itself, if that makes sense. And it's the same thing with the monsters. You make the monsters do what you believe they would do. A big giant monster is going to use power moves, whereas a little creature like a pixie is going to use speed and dodge through the trees and use its own kind of psychology. Put yourself in the mind of the monster. How would you do it? What would you do? And then make it believable, but then also make it dynamic and fun. Make it dramatic. Don't just, I'm going to do this because this and this. I'm going to attack the strongest guy. Well, I'm going to come in. My pixie's going to come in and just trick you. I'm going to send all these tricks every way. So you're not going to know which direction he's coming from. The dryad's going to bounce from tree, attack you, bounce to another tree and attack you. He's going to make you think there's 3 of him. There's only one, but the way the dryad is moving around the trees, he's going to make you believe with his actions that there's 3 dryads. But he's just one guy using psychology to trick the party into thinking there's 3, and that's a dramatic story with a little guy as opposed to a big guy. You got to use the abilities that the creature has, and find dramatic ways to let the players affect it, and let those things affect the players. And you'll find that your combats are way more. They're going to be more dramatic, more fun, more interesting, and you're going to literally tell stories within stories just by fighting. Your combats don't have to be now we're just rolling dice now, which is fun. You're going to tell dynamic combat stories to enhance your campaign story. So yeah, it's just a little quick video about using pro wrestling psychology to add to your single monster encounters. And I'll make some more videos about this, a little more with the techniques and specific monsters, and I'll post the things. And I'm going to put down below a link to actual what pro wrestling psychology actually is, a little more in depth. Like you can read that and stuff, because there's people that explain it better than I will in a D&D video. But yeah, but pro wrestling is a great source to gain dramatic storytelling knowledge. It's simple. But it's so effective when done right. So yeah, hope that was interesting. We are Omniverse Gamers. Like, subscribe, all that jazz. I hope to see you soon, and keep on gaming.